The Government has listened to the people. The package announced in this chamber yesterday brings simplicity, certainty and affordability to every family and individual in Ireland. At a net cost of €60 a year for a single occupancy house and €160 for every other house, the water charge will be 16 cents a day for a single person and 44 cents a day for a family. It's far less than you'd pay for a single bottle of water in a supermarket or a corner shop. The package also ensures there will be easy pay options in place for those who genuinely have difficulty paying the charges, which are amongst the lowest in Europe. I believe people will accept, that this affordable package represents a fair and reasonable approach, and I'll come back to the reasonable point in a moment to have a chance. A fair and reasonable approach to addressing the undeniable need to invest in our poor and deteriorating water and sewage infrastructure. Because whatever way we do it, only the Irish people are going to provide that investment. Nobody else will do it for us. I'm equally confident that at the appropriate time, Eurostat will confirm that we have met the EU's market corporation test, which will keep Irish water investments separate from the Exchequer figures. Yesterday's package was, among other things, designed to do just this. The Government is fully confident that with just 44% of the company's subvention coming from the Exchequer, we will comfortably clear the bar, which is set at 50%. Another significant element of the package is the improved governance arrangements for Irish Water and its parent company, Ervia. The current Board of Irish Water is being stood down at the end of this month. In its place, we will establish an overarching non-executive board with responsibility for the performance of the Ervia Group, including Irish Water and another public utility, Gas Networks Ireland. This will establish better corporate governance with clear responsibilities and lines of accountability. Irish Water and indeed Gas Networks Ireland will be subject to control and oversight by the Ervia board. Irish Water and Gas Networks Ireland will each have a 4-person executive board, which will report to the overarching Ervia non-executive board. Today, the Public Appointments Service initiated a process using stateboards.ie to seek applications from suitable candidates to fill 4 vacancies on the Ervia board. New Era will lend its expertise to the recruitment process in line with the new arrangements for appointments to state boards agreed by Government in September. And as the Minister Kelly announced in the Dáil yesterday, it is the intention of the Government to amend the legislation in order to extend the membership of the Ervia board from 9 to 11, which will then mean that we'll have a full complement of 6 additional vacancies, 2 additional vacancies to the 4 that are now advertised. The new process for appointments to state boards requires interested applicants to meet clear appointment criteria, which will be in the public domain. Applicants will be required to submit an application form and a detailed CV, together with a completed competency questionnaire and a covering letter. The Public Appointments Service will assess and shortlist those applications. Thereafter, New Era will consider the shortlisted applicants and will take account of its advice before making final appointments. This Public Appointments Service, the New Era process, will strengthen the Ervia board, which will include members with proven experience in water services and energy infrastructure at a senior level, and with expertise and high-level experience in areas such as corporate governance, leadership, transformational change, finance and law. Other changes within the group will combine to create economies of scale and synergies between Irish Water and Gas Networks Ireland, including common approaches to major projects and shared service efficiencies. These changes, particularly the new single non-executive Ervia board, will ensure a firm focus on making Irish Water fit for present and future purposes. The changes will strengthen cohesion within the group and will remove the potential for ambiguity in the decision-making process. As a result, Leascan Cora will be able to deliver on the Government's package of Irish water measures which were announced yesterday. I had an opportunity to listen to much of the debate, Leascan Cora, which has been interesting and often insightful. I heard Deputy Murphy just a few minutes ago making an attempt to defend himself and to demonstrate to the House that he is indeed a reasonable person, despite all of the suggestions that he's upset with that he is otherwise. And I wonder what grip on reality an individual who thinks that trapping somebody in their car for 12 hours is a peaceful protest. What kind of reasonableness does that demonstrate? You see, I think that he's right when he says, and his colleagues are right when he says, that people have a right to protest. I think Deputy Higgins let the cat out of the bag reporting this morning's newspapers when he said it's got nothing to do with the affordability of water. It's got nothing to do with the charges. I think Deputy Murphy himself said on the radio that if it was 1 cent per family per year, he would still demonstrate against it. That's fine. But the ground is now clear in relation to this debate. It's now about whether we have water charges. It's not about the affordability question. That's dealt with. It's not about the certainty of the charges into the future that many people were concerned with. That's dealt with. It's about the question of whether there should be water charges. And I hear Deputy Coppinger saying exactly. So we have a clear division here, a clear distinction between how people approach this. But Deputy Higgins talks about snake oil salesmen he mentioned yesterday. I think it's a bit like getting your retaliation in before the accusation is made against you. Because the real snake oil salesmen, Lascan Corla, are in fact sitting opposite, in my respectful opinion. Particularly Deputy Higgins, Coppinger and Murphy, who seem to believe that you can have water for free without funding, without having any position at all as to how it will be funded, that you can have public services without taxes, that you can have investment without making provision for it, and most spectacularly of all, from a so-called party of the left, they're opposed to property taxes. I've never, of all of the contradictions and of all of the remarkable events and statements that I've seen in this House in the short period I've been here, it has been the spectacle of a socialist party opposing property taxes. And again, that's their position. They are against property taxes. I think that, to me, Lascan Corla, that is not the position of a left-wing party. I don't know how they would describe themselves, but certainly it isn't a left-wing or a socialist position, or one that I could ever identify with, and certainly not one that James Connolly, who was quoted at length, could possibly identify with. Can I turn to the issue of, well, your friend was quoting James Connolly and he's still against property taxes, which is quite remarkable. Now, in relation to the plebiscite, can I say this about parliamentary democracy? When we talk about what's democratic and what constitutes democracy, I think protests, including street protests, are part of our democracy. And absolutely nobody has any right to criticise people's absolute entitlement to demonstrate on the streets. But I think to suggest that when we criticise the effective false imprisonment of a politician or of any citizen in their car for a period of hours, or when we criticise intimidating behaviour, that then somebody turns around and says there's an attempt being made to demonise people. Deputy Murphy does stand condemned in relation to that incident. He has failed to actually give an account, any kind of a reasonable account of himself on that occasion. He has been given every opportunity in the public airwaves to do so, and indeed in this House, and he has failed remarkably to do it. So he can't get himself back into the reasonableness tent that he tried to do in the course of his speech earlier on, because he simply has no concept of what any kind of democratic engagement entails. And this brings me to the issue of the plebiscite on a referendum. This is a parliament with all of its flaws and drawbacks. It's a parliament where each one of us is elected here. And by the way, I heard Deputy Murphy talking about scared, that people are scared, that the government is scared. Can I just tell him that no matter what he does or says, I'm not scared. The worst thing that can happen to a democratic politician in a democracy is that they lose their seat. So be it. So be it. But the language of trying to ensure that somebody is scared, which is, I think, is what Deputy Murphy is engaging in, to try to actually introduce a notion of fear and intimidation into a protest and then talk about government members being scared, I think is despicable.